Forget gurus. Forget anyone claiming to be an online business expert without going through the challenges of entrepreneurship themselves. The Real Money, Real Business podcast is here to prove the best insights in online business comes from your fellow online business builders. We dig into stories of entrepreneurs selling their business on the Empire Flippers marketplace so that you can learn how they made their business profitable, how they overcame obstacles, and what lessons they learned in their online journey. If you want to take your business and your knowledge to the next level, you've come to the right podcast. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Real Money, Real Business podcast. I'm Lauren, and today we have Tim on the show who's selling a service business on the Empire Flippers marketplace. Hey Tim, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Well, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. Yeah, really excited to have you here. This certainly sounds like a very interesting business. But before we dive in, I'm going to give the listeners a brief summary of it so they know exactly what we're talking about. This is a service business. It was created in April 2017, and it's in the business niche. The average revenue for the business is $75,219 per month, and it makes an average of $16,762 per month in net profit. The assets included with the business are a domain and all site content and files, employee contracts, client contracts, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube social media accounts, an email list with roughly 1,000 subscribers, a Zoho CRM, process libraries and SOPs, and secondary domains. Please note that this business uses the Stripe payment processing platform, and therefore the buyer will be required to have a legal entity in the country where the Stripe account is located to purchase the business. For everyone listening, you can visit empireflippers.com/marketplace and search for listing number 62527 to learn more about this business. Or you can unlock this listing to start your due diligence if you're interested in purchasing this asset. So now that we know more about the business, let's hear from the seller. Tim, can you fill us in on your background in starting and running online businesses?
Sure, no problem, Lauren. I jumped on a plane in 2009 to Manila and at tender age of 29 and started, I'll call it a business process outsourcing company or a BPO. Or an outsourcing company, depending upon who's listening, they may understand that terminology. While that was an office-based business, everything was online other than people physically turning up to an office, in that all the customers were online, all the SaaS that we employed, about 15 different SaaS platforms, all online. And I successfully exited that business in 2016 and then started this business in 2017. So this business is entirely online, an identical model. But all of the staff work remotely. They all work from home. And in the previous business, they worked in an office. Essentially, both businesses were online. So about 13 years all up.
Yeah, fantastic. That's a good amount of experience you've got under your belt there. And what inspired you to get into the staffing niche in particular?
So it's a very specific story. So in 2008, I was watching TV. I was a sales director in a health company in Sydney at the time. And I was watching the Today Show on Channel 9 in Australia, for those who know what that is. And they were talking about hiring web developers for $10 an hour and virtual assistants for $9 an hour. And I couldn't believe what I was hearing. And I actually engaged several offshore companies while I was a sales director, essentially outsourcing sales administration and some admin. And the results were really good. My customer experience was average. So I'm the sort of person that when I see an industry with potential that's not being done very well, my solution, rather than looking for another supplier, is I go and start a company in that industry. So that was 2008. I remember that day specifically. It was before I was getting dressed to go to work, eating my toast, and that story came up on the Today Show. And I haven't looked back since. I got a VA. I hired a VA first, and then I expanded from there. And then the GFC hit. So this was early 2008, I think. And then most of my industry that I was in was wiped out. And I thought, okay, this is perfect timing. I'm launching my own offshore staffing company. And then it all began in 2009.
Such a fantastic story. It's amazing how inspiration can strike in the unlikeliest of places sometimes.
Yep.
So this business has come a long way in the years that you've had it. It's certainly grown a lot. What are the reasons you've decided to sell the business now?
There's a few reasons. One, I started another company. I registered in November last year, launched in about March this year, and it's actually in affordable modular housing. And The timings has been reasonably well received in Australia, and I'm now doing probably about 60 hours a week in that company. Prior to that, I was probably down to about 10 hours a week at the company that I'm selling. Initially, I had the time, but now my fear is that I don't have the time to run both successfully. So that's the primary reason. It's executive bandwidth, if I can call it that. I can't run two six-figure-a-month businesses. I'm talking Australian dollars. I can't run two six-figure-a-month businesses successfully without employing an entirely new level of executive management, which would dilute the profits of both companies. So it doesn't make sense to do that. That's the first reason. The second reason is this specific business is not old, but I've been in this industry now since 2009, and I'm a creator. If there's a personality profile test that everyone can go through, and I've gone through it, and my extreme creator and not an implementer. So I've gone through the creation and the iterations, and I've gone through about as much creating as I can do in my 13 years of this. And I feel like I've completely exhausted all creativity, particularly with the rollout of our done for you services, which for buyers, they'll see that on our website. That was about a year of 20 hours a week, ebbing and flowing across every specific variable. And that was about 5 years in the making before I even started building that. Now that that's all done and that foundation set, my creativity is just about exhausted. And I mean that in all the right ways. Thousands of hours have gone into creating this model, which is quite unique. And I don't think for it to remain its boutique nature, I don't think there's a hell of a lot more creating to do. It's now about applying capital and really smart marketing to grow it. And the creativity part, there may be some offshoots of creativity in the future, but I feel like most of that's done. So the foundation's been set. I'm the sort of personality type that wants to now apply creativity to a startup.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. As you say, there are entrepreneurs who enjoy building and creating and those who enjoy the processes and streamlining and maintaining. Looking back on your journey with the business throughout the creative process you went through, what was your biggest win since starting the business?
So in this second iteration, the biggest win I would say is moving the entire model to home-based. So we went from 200 people in an office in 1.0 to everyone working from home 2.0. So that was a complete shift in culture, virtual activities, different recruitment process, looking for different personality types, different contract, everything was different. So that was a huge shift. Whether we call that an achievement or not, or a necessary change with, COVID and everything before that, that was an achievement. But probably the biggest financial achievement was creating a stable business model. This model is historically, my first 10 years were certainly up and down. When the lockdowns and COVID hit, I focused exclusively on operational excellence because I'm a chief marketing officer. I'm a growth and accelerator person. So I shifted to process creation, process engineering, process maps, Loom videos, all those sorts of things. They're pretty boring to do. But when we were unsure about what was going to happen with most global economies, we just said, okay, let's not grow. Let's focus on operational excellence. And that was a huge shift in paradigm for me as a person and as an entrepreneur, and also for our business. And for those of you who study our revenue statements, you'll see what I mean by what that's created. It's basically the same amount of revenue almost every month after month, which for anyone who knows this industry is almost unheard of. That's with very little marketing done. Again, because of the last 2 years of uncertainty, we've invested almost nothing in marketing because we're not sure if society will go into another lockdown and certain industries will be potentially shut down. So we thought, okay, let's just focus on creating an amazing product rather than accelerating growth. So that was, from a personal perspective and also from a profit perspective, probably the biggest achievement.
Yeah, absolutely. As you say, it's been a very turbulent time in the online business world. So to be able to achieve the stability you have in these uncertain times is definitely a huge win. Were there any setbacks or challenges that you had to overcome while building this business?
This specific business that started in 2017, I think most people underestimate the amount of capital that is required. Even though I'd done it before, I, again, underestimated the amount of capital required to get it to 60, 70,000 US dollars a month revenue. And I did that in my first company by about to the tune of about $1 million. In the second company, far less, about $100,000. That the biggest challenge, was certainly underestimating the amount of capital required. Once we got through that hurdle, though, and got to profit, then all obviously that became a non-issue. But that certainly was something I got wrong again.
Yeah, absolutely. It somehow seems to take us all by surprise every time, even though we should be expecting it.
Yeah.
Looking at your audience now, what does the typical customer for this business look like?
Okay, so I'll hit on a few demographic types. So the size, if I talk revenue first and then number of staff that they might have locally employed, would be in the 200,000 a year to up to 10 million. There'd be few in the 5 to 10 million. The vast majority, 90%, would be the 200,000 to 2 million turnover. And they would likely have 10 staff or less employed directly. The majority are probably 2 to 5, and 90% would be service-based. So, we're not in manufacturing, not in retail, because they're physical businesses. Yeah, they're generally either virtual or service-based, and 1 to 10 staff, usually 2 to 5, and the 200K to 2 million annual turnover US dollars.
Right. Okay. So how are these customers finding your product? Where does the majority of your traffic come from?
Google AdWords has been mainstay for us for literally since 2010 in my first business and crossing over into this business. We've recently branched into brand awareness YouTube ads. About 12 months ago, we employed LA-based production company, like a TV commercial company, that produced a really good 60 to 90 second commercial for us. We have that on our website and we put that on YouTube. So we've branched into brand awareness on YouTube literally only about 6 weeks ago. So that's quite new for us. And Facebook as well, and also Facebook remarketing, which follows on from the Google ads. We've also recently hired a local Filipino SEO manager who is client-facing and also inward-facing. So we are getting into SEO. We changed domains midway through this business from having a enda.com.au. And I knew that we were going to do it when we started, which is why I didn't invest a lot in SEO. But when we'd finally decided that it was going to be a global website, so just a .com, which was only recently decided because we were flirting with the idea of local websites, .nz, .canada, etc. We've hired a local, like an in-house SEO person as well. So that should start to get traction towards, early 2023.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to reiterate, most of your paid campaigns are outsourced to agencies. You're not handling those in-house?
No, sorry, I should have confirmed. So they're in-house, but the SEO is a recent addition to our in-house activities. Over the last 2 years, I have attempted to outsource marketing just so we could focus on operations, particularly over the last 24 months. And I've found just due to the complexity of the service array that we have, we basically offer 13 to 15 completely different services in terms of roles. That we basically sell roles. And there's 15 different sets of keywords, 15 different landing pages. Most agencies can't wrap their head around it. It's too much complexity for them. So maybe pivoting to a future question, but the role of marketing or inbound marketing or chief marketing officer will be best served for the buyer to be likely done in-house because it is a significant volume of work. It's not 20 to 40 hours a month of work, which is what a typical agency would do. You've got to sink your teeth into hundreds of keyword variations. So, we keep that in-house. Typically, and this is going back to one of the original questions, why am I selling? So I was the chief marketing officer for the first 4 years. With distractions of my new company, I have not been able to put the time into being the chief marketing officer. During that time, I'm sure things have changed. So I think if someone, in terms of a potential buyer, if they have solid marketing experience or if they have within their existing team good marketing experience, there could be some really quick wins in that sense in terms of what I may have lost in knowledge of as I've started my new company. Someone could pick up from that and hit the ground running with 2022 knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. Given the complexities of the business, as you mentioned, it certainly sounds like a specialized marketing role would definitely be needed. Having a look at your product now, do you have different pricing tiers? You mentioned you have a range of products with the business.
Yeah, so essentially our business is fractional staffing or fractional virtual labor hire would be the longer version of it. Each role has different level and each level comes with a different price. We actually have, without trying to overcomplicate it, in the back end, we have 30 different levels of pricing starting from about $5.90 US per hour all the way up to about $40 US per hour. But the front facing model basically displays a junior level, mid level, manager level, and director level for all the roles we sell. If you go to someone's specific CV, which we have on our website, so essentially, like I've said before, we're in the business of virtual labor hire. So our product that people can buy online is subscribing to a staff member. So each staff member has a different price. The client has the option to choose 10 hours a month, 20 hours a month, 40 hours a month, or 80 hours a month. And it's a sliding scale based on that. So 80 hours a month is less per hour, obviously more per month. And 10 hours per month is significantly more per hour, but less dollars per month. So long story short, there's many, many different options, but on the front end, the client, they're not confused with a lot of options. They basically can filter staff, pick a role, and they're presented with levels for that role, junior, mid-level, senior, and then 10, 20, 40, or 80 hours a month.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think you've answered this question, but just to clarify for the listeners, are the services bought on a subscription basis or can they be bought on a once-off purchase as well?
At the moment, and I'll give the short answer is all subscription at the moment, either month to month or 12 months. Almost every client that signs up signs for 12 months because of the way we've structured our pricing. So it is all monthly recurring revenue. I think there is an opportunity for a buyer to launch one-off tasks, tapping into our available labor pool, because we have about 1,000 to 2,000 hours a month of excess talent because of the way we've structured our fractional staffing model. Everyone's hired full-time, but there'll be occasions where someone might have 20-hour-a-month clients and they have therefore 100 hours left over. We have a pool of those staff. So there's definitely the option to capitalize on the excess talent that's sitting idle while waiting for new clients and launching one-off services, which we have thought about. But at the moment, everything is monthly recurring.
Yeah, well, following on from that potential opportunity that you mentioned there, what do you see as the major growth opportunities within this business?
That's a big one. If we were to add up the untapped recurring revenue, to provide some context, we have to have excess talent in order for our potential clients to see available staff. That's just the nature of our model. We don't hire our staff as the clients request it. We hire them in advance, which is one of the reasons why our closing ratio is so high, because we have talent ready to go. The flip side of that is we also have excess talent. So that's definitely an opportunity. A product that I didn't launch, I call it Tasks on Tap, is basically sitting in the wings, ready to go. And it's basically a list of one-off tasks that relate to each role that we sell that existing clients or new subscribers, so non-clients but subscribers to the website, could tap into. So, build me a landing page, build me a logo, basically one-off services relating to each function. So there's potentially, at the current size of 60 staff, there's potentially 5,000 to 10,000 US dollars a month, I believe, of untapped revenue. At 100 people, there's anywhere from 10 to 20,000 US dollars a month of just untapped revenue based on that, what I call just excess manpower. The other one is if there's someone who is an excellent marketer that has, so a marketer with capital applied to this business model could very rapidly grow this to 100 people. What I've spent the last 12 months doing, particularly as we've pivoted towards operational excellence, is I've built a management structure that it is just ready to scale. In the past, I've scaled rapidly, and then you're hiring managers and you're training them quickly and you don't know if they're proven, and some of them work out, some of them don't. Our current team leaders have been with us an average of 3 years, which in our industry, again, is unheard of. And they now have an operations manager. So we have the foundation to very easily grow to 80 and then 100 people. So there's 60 now, 60 people with a revenue potential of 2,000 US dollars to 3,000 US dollars a month at a gross profit margin of 50% or more for our done for you services. We would not need to hire any additional team leaders to grow to 80 people. we'd probably need to promote 2 people to team leaders to grow to 100 people. At 80, we're probably double the profit because of our low overheads. At 100, we're probably 50% again. So someone who can come in with capital and say a $10,000 to $20,000 temporary marketing budget could very easily scale this to 100 people within 6 to 12 months and easily double the profit.
That's fantastic. It certainly sounds like there's a lot of potential for someone to tap into if they have the right resources or skills to be able to do so. You've mentioned your team a couple of times. It certainly sounds like you've got quite a large team with the business. Can you give us a rundown of who the team consists of and the tasks that they take care of for you?
Sure. So I'm still functioning. So I'm obviously the CEO. I'm functioning as the quasi CMO, Chief Marketing Officer, but that's in a holding pattern at the moment. We have a CFO in Manila who does essentially all of our bookkeeping and forecasting. So that's the finance division. We have a HR department which includes payroll and talent acquisition. So that role is HR, all the financial elements of payroll with the assistance of the CFO, and also talent acquisition. Under that person is a fractional recruiter. So what I mean by that is that person is also billable. So that person's also facing clients doing VA work, but they're also recruiting 4 hours a day as well. So the benefit of that is that role is financially, roles like that, as similar to the CFO, of financially self-liquidating. We may get into that in a further question around the financial model, but a lot of these roles are partly internal and partly client-facing. So clients are paying for their time, and in their other time, they're also managing our company. So really, we're living and breathing the fractional staff leasing model in every sense of the word. So I've covered marketing, sales, or customer experience. We've got sales and account management have been merged into one role, which is customer experience. One thing we learned early on and really implemented recently is the desire to keep the client relationship with one person from the very moment they inquire all the way through the relationship. So sales and account manager now one role. We have one person managing the US market and one person managing the Australian market. So they handle the leads and then they onboard and then grow those contracts. Like I said, I'm doing marketing 2 hours a week. That's a huge untapped part of the business that's in a holding pattern. That's the general organizational structure. One last thing, our team leaders are now managed by an operations manager. So that's a recently created role. I previously managed all of our team leaders. There's 7 of them, managing the 60 staff. One of them has ascended to the role of operations manager. So essentially there's CEO, operations manager under the CEO, HR under the CEO, finance under the CEO, and marketing under the CEO. And the marketing is currently done by me, but again, could be done by, a full-time person with, more focus.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, it certainly sounds like you've built out a good team and there's a good hierarchy there, especially with that new operations manager role. I'm sure it's allowed you to step back from the business a bit in terms of your time. So can you walk us through what a typical work week looks like for you when running this business? How many hours do you spend on the business? What sort of tasks take up your time?
Sure. So due to the age of the business and also how long so many of these people have been inside this business, my work week is now 90% meetings. And when I say 90% meetings, 90% of 5 hours. So my work week is about 5 hours and I have about 4 meetings, one with the customer experience team, one with the operations team, one with HR, and every now and then with finance. So 4 or 5 meetings a week. They go from anywhere from 30 to 90 minutes. Other than that, the people that are in those roles, essentially at manager level, so they are also spending a fair bit of their time developing processes. So when I have a meeting, one of the outcomes of the meeting is generally a process update or a process change or addition. So they then go and update our intellectual property after those meetings. So that used to be something I used to do. I've since taught them how to do that with process mapping, Loom videos, and beyond. So there's a little bit of chat. So we use Zoho Workplace. One of the elements of Zoho Workplace is Zoho Click, which is essentially like Viber, or it's almost like texting. So there's a little bit of back and forth each day, probably about 15 minutes. outside of meetings. But other than that, it's 4 to 6 hours a week is my work week. And that's not a mistake. It's not even a matter of how much time I have. I have essentially set this business up to sell over the last 6 to 12 months. And a consequence of that is the promotion of responsibility or the increase of responsibility of all of the management team, such that they're essentially running the company in my absence. And the absence is deliberate, not in a negative way. It's to set it up so that the potential buyer, if they are time poor, basically plug this in as an asset, or if they're time rich, jump in and expand it, rapidly based on the spare time they have.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a very clever strategy. And as you say, it will make it more attractive for buyers to have the company able to run itself when they step in. So with everything we've discussed in mind, what do you see as the biggest challenge for a buyer when taking over this business?
I think there's two. The first one would be knowledge of the Philippines. So if a buyer has not been to the Philippines but really wants to buy this business, they'd be best served to jump on a plane straight away and immediately immerse themselves in the culture. I guess this is a relative question in that if someone has significant experience in the Philippine culture, it's a huge advantage. If they don't, they will need to get a head start and spend some time there. Or understanding any culture takes time, so complete immersion in the culture would be recommended for someone who does not have experience in the culture. So that would be a challenge for someone that doesn't have experience in the culture.
Yeah, so just follow on that, just to clarify for the listeners, what role does Manila and the Philippines play in this business? Why would they need to go there?
So all of the staff are there. Other than a paid media manager recently hired in California to restart marketing, all of our staff are in Manila. Well, sorry, they're across the Philippines. I say Manila because everyone knows Manila, but they are spread out home-based throughout the Philippines. So that is where the workforce is.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So with that in mind, how much support are you willing to offer the buyer to help them overcome these challenges and ease their way into the business?
So for a buyer, I'd be more than happy to jump on a plane with them. And depending upon how they would like to phrase their involvement, obviously they could say they're the new owner or they could say they're an investor and I then slowly work myself out of the picture. I'm open to either of those scenarios. More than happy to jump on a plane, get everyone together and introduce this person. Again, I'm open to how that person is sold in terms of the narrative, but I can spend several weeks there, potentially either in one stint or across several trips over a period of months post-sale.
Yeah, I think that'll be a huge help, really easing the new buyer in, which will be a great asset. When it comes time to negotiating the actual sale and the deal structure, would you be open to something like an earn-out agreement?
I would. An option that I'd be open to would be something resembling a 70-30 split, 70% upfront and then 30% over a period of up to 12 months.
Perfect, yeah. And would you commit to a non-compete agreement?
Definitely, yeah.
Perfect. Well, Tim, I'm sure there's lots of aspiring entrepreneurs who are listening in and who might be interested in starting a business of their own. So what advice would you give to our listeners that you wish you knew when you first started this business?
Okay, so if I go back to my sentiments about the type of entrepreneur I am, a growth, marketing and salesperson, if there's anything the last 2 years has taught me is operational excellence will trump any marketing efforts you do, in that the business has never been more stable since I pivoted to focusing on operational excellence. Like I said before, the profit and loss statements and the revenue statements are evidence of that. So that would be my advice, is continue focusing on operational excellence. Apply marketing budget, apply capital to that. But if you focus on a world-class service, then it's only up from here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's very valuable advice. You can market all you want, but if you can't back that up with excellent service, then it's never going to work out.
Yep, exactly.
So, Tim, that leads us to the final question of the interview and the one that I think all the buyers have been waiting for. If you had to put yourself into the shoes of a buyer, why do you think your business is a business worth buying?
Many reasons. The first being there is significant untapped value in the management team. Most of these managers have been with the company for a significant amount of time. Some of them have known me longer than the age of this business. The foundation that's created in terms of scalability is huge. We've managed to create a very stable revenue stream over a significant amount of time. We've now had, believe it or not, since COVID hit 2.5 years ago, we've now had almost 30 consecutive months of profit. And before that was 30 months of every second month profit, every second month loss. So we've basically created a very solid, stable income stream through operational excellence. So that, coupled with the very experienced management team that are all very well paid and therefore likely to stay, not just likely to stay because they're well paid, but likely because they all know each other and gel really well. There's huge untapped potential for a buyer with capital, and a buyer, ideally, if they come from a marketing background as well, or if they have a good marketing team, but a buyer that can apply capital to this potential, there's significant potential.
Yeah, absolutely. That wealth of experience that you can draw on is definitely a huge asset. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners that I might have missed?
I think this has been a pretty free-flowing conversation. So anything that hasn't been captured in this chat, like I think we spoke of before, more than happy to delve significantly deeper into, one-on-one conversations with people with any questions they have.
Wonderful. Well, Tim, thank you so much for coming onto the show and giving us some more insight into you and your business. It certainly sounds like a really interesting business that I think buyers will be very attracted to. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show, and I appreciate you taking the time out of your day.
Great. Thank you, Lauren. Appreciate your time.
All right, everyone, thanks for listening. To learn more and see if this listing has already been sold, head over to empireflippers.com/marketplace and search for listing number 62527. If you're watching this on YouTube, click the link in the description to go straight to the listing. Once you've unlocked this listing, you'll be given everything you need to know about this business. So until next time, enjoy your digital journey.